Alright, earlier on we have exploited the content provider, that was the part 1. This is the part 2. Earlier on again this method was exploited, this thing was exploited, and now we will gonna exploit the content provider with a little other way which is available in the app. Okay, so let me quickly show you. Like currently the Allsafe application does provide us two different ways to exploit the content providers. What are those? So if you can read the content over here, it basically says that application also provides access to some files which we share with other apps. That means there are some again misconfigurations which are made in the applications, because of which some other third-party applications can access the internal file structure of the application. Now let's verify that and let's see how we can exploit it. Alright, I have already started the JDAX and I have already decompiled the application. The first thing we have to do is we have to check the manifest file, and over here I'm gonna quickly search for provider, and as we can see I have these two providers. The first provider is exported. That means simply via accessing this authority name, we can access the application's internal files. Okay, but with the second provider, which is defined over here, my exported is set to false. That means I cannot directly go ahead and use it or use this authority name in order to access the application's internal file. But there is one thing which we have to see, that my application has grant URI permission set to true. That means any third party application can applications can access my current Allsafe applications internal directory as well as internal files if that third party is having read URI permission enabled. Okay, and at the same time, what more we have? We have this XML folder, and this XML folder has this provider underscore path file. Let's quickly check this, what we have over here. So I have to go to this res folder, scroll down a little to XML folder, and here I'll get the provider underscore path. So if we check this file, this basically allow us as in allows all the third party applications to directly access all the contents which are available in slash which are available in files folder. That means let me quickly show it to you. Okay, let me go to all saves internal directory, data infosec ranges. Okay, as you can see, these applications internal directory consist of three different directories, out of which the XML file provides us the complete access of this file folder. Let's see what is there in files. So we have one document folder again. Let's quickly check what we have in the document. So I have to go to files, then docs, and we get this readme file. For the timing, for the curiosity, let's check what is written in the readme.txt. So there is some base64 encoded data. For the moment, we will not gonna decode it. Let's try to exploit it. Okay, now we have one roadblock, that my Android application is exported to false. So we need to identify at least a single mechanism in the application which will help the third party application to access the internal files directory. So for that, my Allsafe application does have this proxy activity. Okay, we can simply skip all of the content which are written in the proxy activity. We have to only focus on line number 12, this section. Okay, let me quickly simplify this line number 12, what exactly it specifies us. So, according to our line number 12, what it does, my proxy activity application first retrieves, or I can also say receives the current intent, retrieve the current intent, not receive, basically it retrieves the current intent, that would be the correct word. It retrieves the current intent using get intent. Okay, and then later on what it does, it basically extracts the extra intent from the current intent. Okay, what my line number 12 is doing, I mean what my proxy activity is doing, it basically retrieves the current intent, and then it will going to extract the extra intent or the extra information which are present in the current intent action, like this, and then later on it will gonna start a new activity based on the data or based on the intent which was extracted from the current intent. Okay, so this is what my line number 12 is basically doing. Okay, so in order to exploit this, what we have to do as a user or as some malicious person or malicious attack vector, what we have to do, we have to do a couple of things. Like first, we have to create our first intent, and this first intent should have the read URI permission enabled. Okay, basically we have to create the application in order to exploit this vulnerability. So let me quickly write it down. We have to create an application, create an Android application and implement the below thing or below conditions. Okay, so what we have to do, as in order to exploit this vulnerability, we have to first create the intent, and that intent must have the read URI permissions enabled. Then we have to define that permission to our current application. In our case, the current application will be the third party application, which we will use to exploit the insecure content provider. Okay, and then what we have to do, we have to specify the URI component to access the data via content provider functionality. Okay, I mean, when I am saying that we have to specify the URI component to access the data, that means I have to specify the URI component in such a way so that I can access all the data which is present inside this current files folder. Okay, then what I have to do? What we have to do basically, we have to again create a second intent in order to launch the proxy activity, which will include the first intent as an extra data. Okay, why we have to do this D section, D part? Because over here what my application is doing, application is extracting the extra intent, I mean extracting the extra information from the current intent, extracting the extra intent from the current intent, and it is labeling it as extra intent, correct? So that's why we have to create the second intent in order to launch the proxy activity in the allsafe application, and this second intent must include the first intent as extra data. I mean, the extra data should be in double quotes. Okay. Then later on, what we have to do? Mm, all right. What happened? Okay, no problem. Then what we have to do? We have to launch, or basically we have to start that proxy activity via second intent which we have created over here. And again, since this second intent is already including the first intent action, now once the proxy activity gets executed via our second intent, what we will be able to do? We will be able to read the data via created component. I mean, basically, we will be able to read the internal data via the specified URI component. Okay, this is how we have to exploit it. It is little bit complicated, but uh, yeah, it is doable. Now let's see how we can do it. What I did, I have already created the Android application, and what I'll do, I'll quickly guide all the things which I had written in the app. So this is my application. My application name is package. Let me start this. Okay. So there are basically two things which are more important for my application, which is this. The first one is the main activity, and the second one is the data fetch activity or the data fetch class. Okay. Now the main activity has everything. Everything, I mean all the conditions which I have defined over here, and the data fetch class, this one. This basically what it will gonna do, it will going to display all the file content on my application's screen. Okay, so this is the code. I have imported a couple of libraries. Okay, so as you can see over here, I have defined this log text view so that I can get all the error messages, all the success messages, as well as applications file content directly on the screen, on the emulator's screen. Okay, now here what I'm doing here, I am defining the new intent. I am setting the read URI permission for my current application. Okay, why I am okay. So here what I did, I specified the data fetch class instead of specifying the main activity. Why I did so is because I have to read all the content in the data fetch. I mean, basically, I have to read all the content, I have to see all the content on the screen. Okay, and this data fetch class is the one which will gonna read every content and display it on the screen. Okay, I'll quickly come back on data fetch class also. Let's first check this out. Then what I'm doing, I'm basically, yeah, okay. Then what I'm doing, I am quickly specifying the URI component to access the data via content provider, which I did is here, correct. And after defining the URI content, what I'm doing, I am simply sending this data, sending this content provider. Okay. And then I'm again logging the details. Then later on, I am creating another intent. In my case, the outer intent is the second intent, and the embedded intent is the first intent. Okay. So now what I'm doing, I'm creating the another intent, and the another I am specifying like why I am creating this second intent. That is, in order to launch the proxy activity, I am creating the second intent. So that information is specified over here. I have to specifically or implicitly execute the proxy activity. That's why I have written the package name of the target application as well as the class name of the target application. Okay, and then what I have to do, I have to, if you can see, After creating the second intent, in order to launch the proxy activity, I have to include the first intent as extra data, which I did over here. Not extra data, as in extra intent, basically. Why extra intent? Because the same thing is written over here. Correct. So over here, what I'm doing, I am including the first intent as extra intent. Correct. And then later after that, I have this try and catch block written over here. So if my proxy application gets started successfully, I will get the started successfully message. Otherwise, I will get the failed message. Okay. And over here, I have defined the log text view. Now let's come to data fetch class. Again over here, there are a couple of Android libraries which I have imported. Okay, and the important section is over here. Okay, so if my intent, I mean, suppose the intent which I have provided over here, the content provider, as well as the intent which I have defined in this code, if my intent is null, I mean, if somehow my application fails, if my third party application or the application which I am creating, if that somehow fails to send the intent to the application, what I'll see, I'll able to see this message which says intent is null. Okay. And if somehow the content provider, I mean the URI string, which is this, if somehow I am not able to send the content provider or the URI string to the target application, then I will see on my screen this particular message which says URI is null. Okay, and if everything works properly, I will get this message URI received. And if I am, and then after that, what I am doing, I am reading the content from the URI string. I mean, I am reading the file content directly from the URI string. So for that, what I did, I have created the input stream, correct? And input stream, I have defined that input stream on file URI, which is again important for me, correct? Because this file URI is the one which is holding the content provider URI. I mean, basically, it is holding the URI string, correct? And then later on, what I did in this try catch block, if I am somehow not able to read the data, I will get the error reading mass file. Okay, else if there is no such error, I will be able to read the content. Correct. And in the try catch block also I have defined the if else condition. And there are a couple of more things which we have to make sure, which is the activity main XML. So my main activity XML looks something like this, which is not more of the concern. But how I am gonna see the data, I mean how I am gonna see the file content on my application is important. So for that purpose, what I did, I have created the data fetch log in my data fetch class in this screen basically. Okay, and then at last what we have to do, I have to first clean the project because that is the important section. Let's wait. Okay, then what I have to do, I have to simply build the APK. Again, it will gonna take a couple of seconds. And once the building process is done, I mean, once I am able to get the updated APK, what I'll have to do, I'll have to install that APK in my emulator. Instead, what more I can do is, instead of me going ahead and manually installing the application, I can simply click on this play button, or not the play button, basically the run button. What my Android Studio will gonna do, Android Studio will directly going to install and execute the APK in the emulator. But for the moment, I don't want that. I want to manually install the application. Okay, so that application which I have just created, Android application, should be available in build directory, build output, APK, and debug. This one. And if I see, yes, I can see my application present over here. My application's name is package. And once I click on this app, I can see the content displayed over here. That means we have successfully exploited the insecure content provider vulnerability. The way which was defined in the Allsafe application, we have successfully exploited that. Now let's go ahead and try to read what is exactly written in this content. So for that, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna now decode this. I'm gonna decode it, and it will be in base 64. So let's decode it, and after base decoding it, I can see that the format which I got is representing the JWT token. It is basically not JWT token, it is basically representing the JWT data. So for that, what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna navigate to jwt.io, one of the favorite website, in order to decode, or I can also say in order to read the content. I'm gonna paste it, and you can simply ignore the invalid signature message. So what we got it, I can see that the role is administrator. The name is Elliot Alderson. Great. At society. And the secret is well done. That means we have successfully performed the activity. Correct. And this JWT token initiation date was on 15th of March 2021. That means more than 3 years ago, the developer or the creator of the Allsafe application has created this JWT token. Okay, so yeah, that's all for the moment.